Hey y'all, so this is my 2017 RZR. It's got, I think about 5,300 miles on it now. And I'm getting ready to take it on a ride, doing a little maintenance. And front wheel bearings is getting a little loose, so the front diff has been leaking pretty bad out of the pinion shaft. Usually when they do that, the pinion bearing is getting worn. It can just be a seal or stopped up vent, but in my case, it's just the pinion bearing is worn. This diff is just, it's about had enough. It's had, since I've had it, it's had stock size tires on it, but the first part of its life, it had some 32s on it, and it's getting ready to have another set of, it's gonna have some 31-inch carnivores on it, on some beadlocks here that I've got. But anyway, I've been anticipating this diff for a while. I was gonna wait until a little later. It's currently November. Well, it's the very end of October 25. I'm not sure when I'll post this video, just because I may wait so I can give you all a little bit of a review on these parts I'm going to be installing. But anyhow, I've known the diff has been really bad for a while. It works okay, but the front axles are super loose in it, and they've been loose for a while. I got it at 4,000 miles, and they were pretty loose then. But they're really loose now. They've gotten worse. And like I said, the diff started leaking, and I pulled this off for a wheel bearing, this hub over here. And while I was doing that, like I said, I was going to wait on the diff till maybe a little later this winter. But I was lifting on this A-arm and this axle shaft, which, like I said, I've known all this is loose. It just basically falls out. It did fall out. And I mean, they're supposed to be retained fairly snug with this snap ring. But the splines are wore, and the splines, the biggest problem to me is the splines wearing the diff. And I know I don't have a good light in there, but the splines wearing the diff, and I don't know why Polaris can't do a little better with their spline stuff. All of it seems to just be loose from the start and then just wear out, you know, even more from there. But like, that right there is just, it's wore out. I mean, I'm just one finger and it just walks around. That's supported by a bearing. And that's on top of the fact that the splines are just absolutely shot. And when I got it, I bought some new front axles for it. And I was hoping that the new axles would tighten that up, and I was just gonna swap the axles. And so I put one in there, and it literally just didn't hardly make any difference. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to put new axles in it if it's not going to help it, because otherwise these splines in this diff are just going to be wearing on my new axles pretty bad. So I just put them back, and basically for now. And then this cup has been dragging so bad, and honestly, it's something I didn't notice. I've known it was really laying down, but I guess I never looked that hard. But it's actually wore this A-arm. It's wore the rim spot off of it. It's got a flat on it there now. It's wore it pretty decent. And a lot of that probably was me taking this to South Dakota and riding it on the road for 250 miles or so, because, you know, I was running 60 mile an hour. Some, quite a bit, actually. We were cruising 50 or 60 a lot. Anyhow, my point is just that the diff is just totally wore out. And so I considered my options. East Lake has a complete diff for like $585, and I don't know a lot about it. It wouldn't surprise me if it's not, you know, maybe made with Chinese parts, but don't hold me to that, because they could be making their own stuff, and I don't want anybody going off of that. It was just me saying that, because I did look at those diffs, but I don't recall if they said made in USA or made in China, or if it even said it all. So that was an option, was to go with an East Lake diff, which I do think they're a reputable company. I have East Lake front axles that are going to go back in this thing, and I have East Lake axles in the back. And I've had the rears in for 1.5 years, for 2 years now, I guess. Because I replaced the drive gear in the transmission then, because the rear axles were loose like that also in the cups. And so I pulled the tranny and replaced the drive gear inside the transmission, and then put 2 new rear axles in it, because I actually stripped the splines in the gear and the axle shaft on one side while I was out riding one day. We'd only been riding a couple hours. Luckily, we weren't too far from the truck, and I was able to get out of where I was at in 4-wheel drive. So an East Lake front diff was one of my options. Another option was to rebuild my diff. There are some rebuild kits out there for this diff. Well, there's several. But most of them, I won't say most, but several of them don't come with a ring and pinion gear. My ring and pinion gear are probably okay, but the problem is the pinion gear shaft, the spline part is wore, so I got to put a ring and pinion in it just for that reason. And the cheapest kit I could find that came with a ring and pinion, plus the rebuild kit, you know, basically all the innards, pretty much everything but the housing. It was like $285 or something for just a Chinese kit on eBay. And there probably are some better ones that you could easily spend $700 or $800 doing that, you know. And then there are the Chinese differentials, just complete units. And some of them have a weird looking housing. I did read one guy say that it looked like, you know, he bought one and he seemed to think it was a beefier housing than the factory housing. And then there are some that look just pretty much like this factory diff, and they can be had for around $350 to $400. So those were pretty much my options. The only other thing would have been buying a used diff, which I really hated to do that just because the splines wear pretty quickly on these things from the factory anyway. And so if you're buying a diff and it's got 1,500 miles on it, and you don't know how it's been treated, if the roller cage is broke, or, you know, the splines are already wore pretty good. It's just, you know, I didn't know if I wanted to go down that rabbit hole. We'll find out. Maybe that would have been a better option. So anyway, this is what I bought. And it's basically just a complete Chinese diff. And it's the one that looks just like a factory diff, basically. I haven't taken it out of the box yet. I don't know if this is good or not. I couldn't find hardly any reviews. And that's really the reason that I'm videotaping this to start with, is just to maybe be able to shed some light on this for anybody that, you know, might be considering one. This says it matches the number on my diff. That's one thing you got to be mindful of. You got to make sure that that you're getting the one that's compatible for your machine. My diff is a 1333790, and this one says it's compatible with this. And I ended up paying $350 shipped, tax and everything to my door for this diff. I just couldn't see rebuilding the factory one with Chinese parts, you know, for almost the same money. It was going to be about $300 to do it that way versus just buying a complete Chinese diff for $50 more and not having to even deal with it. Because I don't see that you're gaining much. I mean, let's be real, the Chinese, you know, there's so many knockoff stuff anymore, just like Honda engines. I mean, if they can build a Honda clone engine that's really good, I mean, people are kart racing with those things, and I mean, they build they clone a lot of things anymore, so, you know, I don't know why they can't build a RZR diff. So we'll find out whether or not it's any count. It may not be. And I haven't bought it yet. I think I have 30 days, but I'm considering buying the warranty eBay offers. It's through Allstate. You can buy a 2-year warranty on this item for, I think it was $45. And so, honestly, I'm thinking I might go ahead and do that. You can buy 1 year for, I think it's 30 to 35, something like that. Or you can buy a 2-year for like 45 or somewhere thereabouts. So, I don't really like warranties, but in this case, if this thing starts leaking, or, I mean, 2 years is a while if I put much riding on it. And the research I've done, it seems like they pay out when people have trouble with stuff. So, you know, if that be the case, if anything at all happened to this in 2 years, they should refund me my money, and at that point I can decide if I want to buy another one of these, if I want to rebuild my factory diff, because I won't sell it, I'll just set it back. Or maybe I try an East Lake. I heard some mixed reviews on East Lake. Some people said, yeah, get one of those. Some people said, no, mine didn't last. So, you know, it seemed like a roll of the dice. As many RZRs that are out there, I couldn't find much info on what people thought, you know, was best or what they had good luck with on a aftermarket diff. And a new factory diff is like $1,900 from Rocky Mountain ATV, and I'll never pay that for a diff for this thing. It's just not happening. So anyhow, this is what I've got. It looks okay. It does have a little chipping right there, probably maybe just from casting. Overall, the casting doesn't seem to look too bad. It matches, you know, it matches really well with the factory casting. I looked at the pictures for a while, and it feels pretty good and snug as far as the bearings, and there's no play there. I'm interested to see how the axles fit in here. I'm going to check that before I bolt it in. And I've not swapped the front diff on an XP1000, which that's what this machine is, a 2017 XP1000 if I didn't say it. But I haven't swapped one, but I think it's just basically the 4 bolts on the bottom here. Should about get it, and there's a vent line in this connection, and I think that's about it. But I do think I might go ahead and plug this in and put it in 4-wheel and just spin this pinion shaft and make sure this engages before I fully bolt it in. But anyway, it looks okay just looking at it. I don't think that says too much about it. I really wouldn't mind to, you know, pull this cover off and look inside, but I'm not going to pull apart a brand new diff. It kind of defeats the purpose of just buying one. If it broke, maybe then I would probably consider pulling it apart and showing everybody what happened to it. But if it doesn't break, then, you know, I can say, well, I've ran a cheap Chinese diff with some 31-inch carnivores in Kentucky and Tennessee mountains and, you know, rocky hills and mud and all that stuff, and it's worth buying. So I'm gonna check some spline stuff out here, slide my axles in a little bit, just make sure everything feels okay, and then I'm gonna get to swapping this. I went ahead and ordered this from Rocky Mountain. This is a CV style front half of the front drive shaft. So you got two halves on the front drive shaft. The first part, starting at the transmission, is a yoke and a U-joint and another yoke on the shaft, and then it comes up to the carrier bearing, which is kind of between your seats somewhere here, and then it goes into a shaft with another set of yokes and a U-joint and another set of yokes and a U-joint at the front diff. I don't have any problem with U-joints, but in this situation, I feel like CV joints would be a lot better. I've never hardly ever have axle problems. And you know, the CVs last really well on them, and the drive shaft has less stress on it than your axles do because it's got some gear reduction working in its favor through the diffs. So Rocky Mountain offers this shaft here. I got it 20% off. I think it was 180 bucks. And my shaft has been beat on by the previous owner, and the yokes were a little bit boogered on it, and it's about time for U-joints. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to try this CV style shaft while I'm putting this diff in. And so I'm hoping this will be a really nice shaft, and that there's no maintenance. Basically, there's no greasing because everything's sealed up. And so I'm hoping it just slides on this diff, and that I'm also hoping it might be a little smoother. When you put these Polarises in four-wheel drive and they actually are pulling, when you're spinning a little bit or going uphill, they kind of growl some, which I don't mind because as soon as you're out of the load, they release again. That's how their four-wheel drive works. But I'm hoping this is smoother and literally should have no maintenance because the grease should be sealed in there. And like I said, they work so well on the axles. I don't know why this wouldn't be a better design for the drive shaft. So, and you have less of a phasing issue with a CV shaft than you do U-joints. So, anyway, I'm interested to try this coupled with this diff and see if it's smoother, or see if I don't have four-wheel drive at all by the end of the weekend. So anyhow, I'm gonna just check some shaft fitment on this thing, and maybe put some power to it and just make sure that it's engaging. It won't engage without power to it and spinning this pinion shaft. So I might try that before I stick it in. But other than that, I'm gonna work on getting this one out. And we'll go ahead and give it a shot. See if I can get it all put in. Hopefully no problems there. And then hopefully I can do a review on it after a while. So stick around. All right, y'all. From the point that I was at there, that literally took, 45 minutes working by myself. Not really being in a big hurry. I already had my tools out mostly. But here they are, the old and the new. You can see the difference in the drive shaft here. You got U-joints on that one, CVs on this one. Try to show. So this does have a bolt in it, but well, when it's together, it has a bolt in it. But look at that pinion shaft. Hopefully you can see that thing walking in there. But these splines, they have some wear too. The U-joints aren't as bad as I thought they were. I'll definitely be keeping that shaft for a backup. it's still okay. I never have liked the U-joint design that well on these, and it's hard to get in there and grease those U-joints, so I thought I'd try this CV shaft. All right, just a quick update. Got the diff bolted in. Got the new drive shaft bolted up. I did end up using an Allen-headed bolt because once the bolt head gets down there deep, you can't really turn it. So I just found this Allen-headed bolt. I know they come from a rope with a rope in from the factory. Some people think you need to keep it, some don't. I don't like it, so I'm just use bolts. But I got my wiring harness plugged in up there. Here's this part inside with the CV joint. The outside was the same there at the diff, obviously. Alrighty, back together, got the bead locks on it. They look pretty nice. I like them pretty well. The tires they're 2 inches taller than what I had, and they definitely look it, and you can tell it when you roll them up beside each other. So I got the new carrier bearing, new front drive shaft with the CV joints in it, new China front differential, East Lake axles, East Lake wheel bearings, new Super ATV inner tie rod ends. I think that's all. But anyway, hopefully next time you see me, I'll either be on the trail somewhere or I'll be giving a little bit of an update or review. So hang around. Popping like crazy. My other one never did that, even as wore out as it was. I don't have a good steady climb to put it in here at the house to show that much, but it's not working. I think it'll work if you ease on it, but that's not really, convenient. Well, this is a much shorter timeline of a video than I had hoped. But I can't say, that this wasn't something that I thought could happen. Unfortunately, when you kind of gas on it in four-wheel drive in the grass, the front end it just pops, this differential does. And it's the roller sprag and they're slipping. I feel like maybe the diff would have some potential with some better parts in it. I'm just guessing. But literally I've ridden it a mile or two. And it does try to engage, and it might take a little more, power at slow, not power, but, with smoother throttle, it might hold a little bit up front, but for sure any kind of bind, it's just not going to handle it. I never had that problem with my stock diff. The sprag never slipped on it, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do now. I've got 4 days until I leave this coming weekend for a ride, so kind of short on time. I could use the sprag and stuff out of this diff in that one, but good golly, that turns into a mess, and I want to get refunded on this diff for sure. I mean, there's no point in me having $300 and some tied up in it, I don't think. Unless I bought, I could buy a new sprag. I could open it up and see about it, but if I open it, then they probably won't want to refund me. So I don't know. I hate to get into Frankenstein and a bunch of stuff. So I'm not sure where I'm at on this right at the moment. I could put this old diff back in for my ride. I mean, it's still working. It just leaks fluid bad, but I can take fluid and just keep it, keep some fluid in it. So what is that to see? I don't know. So I'm wondering, since I'm on a time crunch, if I could pull this diff apart, maybe I could swap the sprag out of my original diff and just see what it does. I mean, I hate to, but this diff is not going to get me out of any kind of jam for sure. Not how it sits. I could put the other diff back in just and run it for the weekend, but kind of hate to do that too because all my spline surfaces are new on my drive shaft and my axles. So I might pull this diff apart first and see what it looks like. But like I said, I don't understand totally what makes the sprag slip on this. I don't know if it's a tolerance issue or if the rollers and the sprag just aren't good quality. I mean, if it's like a tolerance issue or something, then a factory sprag swapped in probably ain't gonna help anything. And that's just also me assuming that they're made identical enough inside to swap those parts. So I think to start, I might try to pull my old diff apart and look at the sprag, see what it looks like, and then just go from there. I feel like I'm gonna have to pull this at some point anyway, so I think I'll pull the factory diff apart first, and then I'll maybe work on getting this one out and go for round 2, I guess. So I got the cover off the old diff. I had to make a little room on my bench. Here's the bearing. I mean, it's bad. And I knew it's been bad for a while. But you can also see these splines. I mean, what's left of them are just sharp little nubs. They should be fatter and kind of with small flat on the top of them. The rollers are so-so. I mean, they're wore, I'm sure. But I'm gonna see if I can get this the rest of the way apart. And then I think I'm gonna work on getting that other diff out. And we'll just see where it goes from there, as far as maybe if it's worth trying to swap some parts. All right, got the diff back out. I ended up leaving that wheel and axle in, but I got a feeling it may not go back in with that like that. I'm not sure. It's gonna be tight. Okay, I got it apart enough I can tell what I need to tell. And unfortunately, this is made enough different that there's just no way of using any parts from the original and making this happen. I just don't really see there's no easy way of doing it, and I'm not gonna pursue it. This has helical cut gears. The factory is a straight cut. Straight cut gears are noisier, but the ring and pinion don't look too bad. I mean, I don't know metallurgist or anything. That looks welded instead of machined. Like maybe they weld this hub into the center of that gear. But the machining marks and stuff look pretty good. And so the real difference, the real problem here, this roller sprag has 7 rollers for each little drive hub. I'm not gonna take this one out. 7 rollers to catch this surface on this axle flange output basically. And the factory one, I haven't counted, but I mean, there's a bunch. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 13 or 14, I'm not gonna recount, but And then it's also a lot bigger diameter. You can see it fits, it fits over top of that one. And pick this up. And you can also tell like the center of this gear where the rollers spread out and retract, you know, so they can catch. It's, you know, it's fairly thin here. This one's a lot thicker because it's just smaller diameter. You can just, I mean, you can just easily tell that there's a lot less holding capacity there. So, you know, it's kind of a shame. I think this diff could have potential if it weren't, you know, for that. But they've made it just enough different that you can't really, like I couldn't even swap this ring gear in because the pinion is different also, you know, it's a straight cut or a helical gear instead of straight. So ultimately, don't waste your time. I think that's conclusive now that, you know, I've taken it apart and looked at it. If it had a good roller sprag in it, I feel like it could have potential. I'm not going to pull these rollers out, but they were skipping for sure. I don't know where the little metal pieces come from. Obviously this is new, and new stuff has debris in it, and you can tell that there's more in there that didn't drain out. But it's kind of a shame that it doesn't have a little more potential than it does, but it's just this stuff is not near as heavy duty as the factory. And this also, I think that's plastic. Actually, I just thought about that. I mean, in a RZR, especially a 1000 or something, you need a metal roller cage. You can't have a plastic roller cage like that one seems to be. I don't think it's not aluminum or anything. It's just some kind of plastic. And that one's aluminum. You can hear that? Okay. You can hear that when my magnet taps it. That's a blunt sound. That's just plastic. So, too bad. It's kind of a shame that this didn't have some potential at least. But I'm going to put it back together, and they're going to have to refund me my money. So just so I can compare everything for y'all, I put this back together. You can see, I don't have my calipers out, but you can see how much more area there is in here than there is in here. Plus this plastic sprag like I talked about, and this is aluminum. And then right here, so this is an output cup for the axle out of the original Polaris diff. This is the new output cup from the inside, so you just can't see the splined end, but look at the difference in diameter. So, I mean, you're talking about a whole lot more surface area on this factory one. And on top of that, with the aluminum sprag roller, you know, and all the extra rollers, it's just, this was just unfortunately set up for failure from the start. All right, so I keep trying to end this video, and I keep, I guess, having updates. I went for my ride over the weekend, but I actually had to put in the $350 eBay diff just to make my ride. Four-wheel drive is really worthless. Like even at, like, we'll say a quarter throttle in low gear, just creeping, just trying to keep a little momentum. Every time the rear wheels slipped at all, the front would pop and ratchet. It was probably helping a little, but there's absolutely zero chance that thing could ever live. I mean, even my 570 RZR would destroy that thing. I think most four-wheelers would. Honestly, I don't know why they made the roller cage set up so weak. Anyway, I had a backup plan that was supposed to have got implemented before I went. I was going to tear apart my factory diff, and I had bought a rebuild kit, and I knew better on this too. Probably I thought I would try it from Caltric. You know, they're just a cheap they're kind of a name brand cheap parts supplier for, you know, all kinds of different things really. And I've had some good luck out of some of their stuff. But anyway, they had a kit for this, and it came with everything I needed. It came with a new ring and pinion, the new output cups here, because my spines are so bad. And came with a new roller cage, the new magnet plate, which I really didn't need the housing cover there with the magnet in it. Mine's still working. But oddly enough, it didn't come with this, and mine is worn. But it didn't come with that. Anyway, I was going to try to get it together the day before my ride. I still had everything tore apart. I assembled this thing with all the Caltric parts, ring pinion. Ended up, I was going to reuse my roller cage and this piece because nothing's wrong with that. Anyway, I had it together with the new cups, ring pinion, all that stuff, the new plate. And when I cinched the bolts down, it wouldn't even think about turning. Like, I had to stick a chisel through the bolt hole for the drive shaft and just bar it over, and it was just so tight. Even with some oil on the pad here that runs against the back of your ring gear and kind of controls lash, I guess. And even with that oiled up, it absolutely wouldn't spin. I actually even tried shaving this down. It came with a new, I don't know what you call that, plastic shim basically. It came with a new one. I even ground it down some just to give it a valiant effort. I was trying to make it work. And it just wasn't happening. I got it to spin a little better, but I just wasn't happy at all with it. So they're going to refund me my money. They said send it back. So I beat the pinion gear back out of it and took all the parts back out, so they're going to get it back. These are the rollers that came with it, and it's literally missing like 8 rollers. And look at the inconsistency here. I don't have them all lined up perfect, but I mean, they're lined up pretty close on the bottom there. And just look at the length difference. And just to be, you know, here's a factory roller. So it's pretty close with that one. But then most of the rest of these are too short. And that one there, I don't know what they were thinking there. I guess they didn't want to waste material or something. I mean, you can't even use that. So, and like I said, like 8 of them were missing. So that was a joke. And then, so here's the rest of it. You know, the output cups look okay. And then here's this plastic piece. There's new input shaft seal. Here's a new cover. Here's the piece I trimmed down with a sander to try to make work. And then here's the roller cage. It looks okay. I just like the factory one better, and mine's not broke, so I was going to reuse mine. Then you get to the ring and pinion, and they say it's a new updated design or something like that. And I mean, if you look at this thing, here's the factory ring and pinion. Those are, you know, big teeth machine steel gears. Mine are pitted a little from wear, but man, they're still usable. And then look at these teeth. This is crappy pot metal cast, not machined, it's cast. You can just tell by looking at it. And I mean, the teeth are just so small. And I just don't feel like, I mean, they may hold up for a while, but I don't feel like they could take near the load that this setup here does. I would rather have this I'd rather have this used ring and pinion in mine than this. And the only reason I was even going to swap it was because of this, which I've showed y'all. The spines are just so terrible on my pinion gear. And you know, these look good. The drive shaft fit fine on it and everything. I was in a rush, otherwise I probably would have just sent it back from the start. But anyway, I just wanted to update until you don't bother with this Caltrick bull crap. I wouldn't bother with that either as far as rebuilding your factory diff. So I guess now I'm down to either buying an Eastlake complete diff or a good used diff. I think I'm just going to try to buy a good used diff, and I may just reseal it. They're easy to take apart and everything. So as long as I find one with good splines and everything, most of this other stuff in here is pretty simple, and even if you had to replace some of it, it wouldn't be no trouble. You kind of know what you're getting with a factory diff, and I've just had enough of this Chinese stuff. Eastlake may be really good. I don't know how their diff is. I've had good luck with their axles. So I'm definitely not cutting on them. I don't know. Haven't heard a lot about the quality. But anyway, I think I'm finally going to end this video here. Don't buy that Caltrick stuff. Definitely don't. Also buy this cheap eBay diff that I put back in here. Really all it did was enable me to hook all my drive shaft and front axles up and still make the ride. Luckily we didn't do anything too hard. I didn't have too much trouble in two-wheel drive. I did use the four-wheel a couple times just to try to ease me through a couple spots, but I definitely couldn't depend on it to get me out of any kind of jam. So anyway, don't make my mistakes. Don't buy either of those things. And so hopefully this review finds somebody that's curious, because I would like to have known this beforehand. So I'm going to quit rambling now. I appreciate y'all watching. Hope this helps somebody, and I'll talk to y'all later.